All right, welcome to the channel. Today, I am going to go over some of the things that have helped me throughout the years on growing businesses and becoming a better human as I grow through the challenges of life and business. One of those things I was taught early on, this is many years ago, from one of my mentors, Mike Ferry, on how to think big. And I want to go over some of the notes that I took. These are probably about a decade old, but they're still relevant today. As I was reviewing these notes, trying to get out of my normal routine and into a better thinking process. And I'm going to share these notes with you right now. So hopefully you'll enjoy these. I would take notes, and that way someday you can review these in the future and see how far that you've come along. And I'll share this with you. The impact of my life has been so positive on thinking big and thinking different, thinking what's possible. It's just been tremendous. And so as I pass this along to everybody watching this channel, I really believe that by doing some of the small things, studying and writing down your thoughts and taking the time to actually think about what you want out of life is imperative, and to keep putting the positive thoughts into your mind. So all right, so let's go with this right here. You have to learn how to think big to get big results. And what that means is nothing's off the table. A lot of us come from humble beginnings. A lot of us come from average households, below average households, and some of you guys have had awesome lives ever since you were little kids. But we're all starting from zero every single day. It is our responsibility to grow through life and to figure out what we want out of this life. And without thinking big, you could never really achieve anything substantial. And having that dream and building, goals and really working on that is so imperative. So learning how to think big and think what's possible is something to start working on if you're not comfortable with doing so as of right now. All right, so you cannot grow from being comfortable. So a lot of us go through the comfort of our lives that we've created, and we get stuck in that comfort. And when you're stuck in that comfort, you don't really see the potential of outgrowing some of that comfort into really achieving some massive living experiences or building big businesses because you're comfortable. And one of the things that I learned a long time ago was to quit being comfortable. It's fine to enjoy for a certain amount of time, but then you've got to learn how to be uncomfortable. That's as simple as picking up the phone and calling somebody that you don't really want to call because for whatever reason, whether you're scared to call, whether you're afraid of the rejection that could come forth, you're afraid that they're going to be judging you, all of that. And just making that call is part of growing through whatever that mindset or hindrance that you're in right there. I had this call yesterday with a great real estate agent, phenomenal leader, and he was reluctant on calling somebody to introduce them to the company he's with. And I basically said, well, just make the call. You'll know after you make the call. And there was a little bit of growing. He's like, you know what? I don't even normally get into these bad mindsets and know why I'm freaking out about this phone call. So I make phone calls all the time. And he was just in his own way. And I'm like, well, typically if it's calling a seller, and we don't want to mess up that conversation because we want the opportunity to get the listing and to get it sold. And if it's $1 million, $2 million listing or something, then you're already counting the commission dollars. And I call that commission breath. In this scenario was, something similar, but maybe it wasn't commission breath. It was more that of the rejection, because I think that was a big opportunity. Anyways, long story short, he made the phone call, and the phone call went perfectly, and he got the appointment to introduce her to another associate and the company. So they're open to having that conversation, but he was very, very uncomfortable even making that call. So you can't grow if you're totally being okay with being comfortable. So getting out of your comfort zone is super important. All right, so thinking big, write this down. Thinking big is a learned process, and it generally is not something you are born with. Typically, people have to learn how to think big. And because as we are younger, we're told no a million times. We're told, don't do that, stop doing that, don't talk to strangers. And your dreams and goals and all that stuff, they're cute when you're a little kid. And then the reality steps forth, and the fears from other people are projected on us, from our parents, from our friends, from our associates, of like, hey, I'm going to be the number one real estate agent in the world, and somebody's got something negative to say, rather than an encouraging word. Yes, you can do that. That negativity, and a lot of times it isn't negativity that they're meaning to. They're trying to help control expectations to potentially save you the discomfort of not achieving that. But it limits us when we're hanging around too many people like that. And so anybody can learn how to think big and implement some big strategies and ideas and take action every single day. And I think the process of that is stretch yourself every single day. Hey, what can I accomplish in this lifetime? And start writing down, hey, I want to be worth $100 million or $200 million or $1 trillion. And that's really thinking big. But is it possible? Yes, it is. Is there a formula for that? Probably. There is, because people are achieving that. And so if somebody else can achieve that, you can actually dissect what they've done in order to copy and mimic some of the actions that they put forward in order to get similar results. So anybody can think big. It's a learned process. All right, it requires learning and growing daily. And we just spoke a little bit about this. So how I am learning and growing daily is I'm listening to podcasts. I'm reading books. One of the books that I have that I'm enjoying here is Becoming More from Diana Kokoska. She was paramount in building a coaching company for Keller Williams Realty and MAPS Coaching. And that's her book. It was forwarded. The forward was written by John Maxwell, which I also am a huge fan of, and a mentee of his in his speaking and coaching organization. All right, who is guiding you in your growth plan? And you can guide yourself. You can look at the real estate agents out there. You can look at the real estate leaders out there. You can look at the community leaders out there and pick 2 or 3, and even pick them from different organizations and pick them from different industries. Allow that continuous learning to come from all different sources. It'll help you think differently and think bigger. Reading biographies is a good thing. And then one of the other things that I have right here where I'm learning from is actually the John Maxwell Leadership Bible. And that's a great book as well. So, all right, think big. Thinking big is a learned process, and it generally is not something you are born with. You've got to develop that skill. And I'll talk to you a little bit more as that we go on with that. That was the number 1. The number 2 was it requires learning and growing daily. Pick your books, pick some mentors, and start studying. Spend an hour a day doing that would be a good recipe, 7-8 hours a week. and that's going to compound over time, and you're going to have 350, 400 hours of growing and learning per year, and that's going to compound. I guarantee it'll compound. All right, number 3, you can't allow complacency to stay in your life, and if you don't like the challenge, you will be complacent. All right, so the complacency, this creeps into every single human being out there, and it's devastating to a personal life, a business life, an organization, all of that. The complacency is focusing on loss, focusing on the challenges, focusing on the problems versus trying to find the solutions and taking action to navigate forward. So think about that. What are you complacent about right now currently? Is it business is slow? You don't have enough listings. You don't have enough buyers. You didn't get your offer accepted. Maybe you're complacent about interest rates. And just know that there's somebody somewhere selling real estate with all the same challenges in the US. And maybe we had 4 million-ish home sales in 2024. And there's going to be 4 to 5 million in 2025. And there could be 6 or 7 million if people took themselves out of complacency and say, hey, we're going to go do our jobs and we're going to help people win in this market, even with the higher interest rates and the higher prices. I would suggest you looking at every aspect of your life and see where you're complacent so you can move forward and move past any of that complacency. Number 4, thinking big is a lifelong journey. And this is paramount in your yearly goal writing. This is something that you should be aware of every single day. Am I thinking too small? Am I thinking at all? Right? That's the other piece is, I've got to develop a plan to move forward and to try to achieve some type of goal. But first things first, every single day for the rest of my life, I've got to start learning and growing, and in order to know that maybe I'm learning something for the next year that's not going to pay off for 5 years, and seek comfort in that. Hey, whatever I'm learning today will pay massive dividends in the future, and everything you do learn is going to be absorbed into who you are. And over time, you're going to have these subtle changes, not necessarily immediately, but over time, you'll have these subtle changes and you will be the most positive person in the room. I promise you that. All right. You have to be open. This is number 5. You have to be open-minded, and you cannot be closed-minded to be a big thinker. So think about all the biases that you have. Think about all of the passions that you have and the reasonings for what you do, and are they hindering your growth? Now, once in a while, I will sell things on purpose that I've collected, and so I don't have the distractions anymore. And within the next couple of years, I'm going to sell all of my sand toys, and I won't have those distractions. It'll save me 30 days or so, not being on vacation, utilizing those things, and go back into a growth mode. So I've enjoyed it, and I feel as though my time is coming to an end, enjoying that, and I'll go back to it someday or whatever, because I really do love it, but I want the time back. And so, being open-minded about selling that is something that I've got to put myself into, of like, what am I going to gain if I do this? And that's just one little example there. You have to allow people to push you forward, and be willing to have those people push you all the time. Now, this is probably a driver personality, type A personality praise right there, because all of the people that are driver personalities and type A personalities are pushing their friends and family. They're pushing it in a positive direction, right? They don't want to be necessarily around people that are playing below what they could play at. And a lot of the driver personalities that I'm around, they're pushing their friends, they're pushing their family to do better because they know they can do more, right? They see the laziness, they see some of these things that could be changed, and it's really mindset and environment. The environment that you're in, including your friends, your sphere of influence, and your family, they're either going to help you or hurt you in your business and in your life. And so be very cautious on that, but allow people to push you forward. It will help you tremendously. All right, you have to be willing to think outside the box. And, a lot of people are trying to think outside the box in business and in their personal lives. Really write it down. Hey, what are my habits every day? And what if I change this habit? If I get up at 7 o'clock every morning, I'm going to use this as an example. I get up way earlier than that. But if I get up at 7 o'clock every morning, well, how do I gain an extra hour or 2 or 3 in my day? And what can I accomplish with no distractions at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning for the next 2 to 3, 4, 5 hours? And if I really time block, if I really don't allow distractions to happen, could I get the gym done? Could I get ready for the office or the work day? Could I get through all my emails? Could I get through all the social media stuff? Could I record a couple of videos? Could I reach out to 10 different clients all before 10 a.m.? And the people that are waking up at 7, they're not even starting all of that till 9 or 10 a.m. And you could be done. So that would allow that different mindset, that different thinking to happen. And that's thinking a lot bigger than what you normally do. Because if you're just waking up at 7 versus 4 or 5, then you are at a disadvantage. All right, so let's continue this. Who can you model after? Think about the amount of information that is out there. And I'm going to use a couple different things in this. As one, could you model an investment strategy off of Warren Buffett? The answer is yes, you can. So if you can do that, and he's the most successful investor in history, and his thinking, his thought process, his proven history has been positive and has been money making for a huge amount, 40 years, I think, something like that, then is that something that you could possibly implement to start getting on the same wavelength and copying him in order to learn how to become a better investor? I think so. I'm going to use this name, Nancy Pelosi. She's a senator she has really amazing trades. Now, is there insider trading or not? Probably. Is it legal for Congress to do that? Technically, yes. And so is that somebody you can mimic to really gain an advantage in the marketplace? Yes. Okay. Now let's talk about investors. How about real estate investors? Is there a person like Grant Cardone that you can copy his strategy of buying big investment apartment complexes? And since he's got a successful track record on the surface, I haven't looked at any books or anything, could that be something that you can do? Is that thinking big enough with a mentor that you can mimic off of those trades? So think about people like that, of like, hey, that person has something that I want, the education or the success or the wins that he's acquiring, the apartment buildings he's acquiring, and could you start copying some of that in order to further educate yourself? The answer is yes. All right. And then how many other things in life? All right. So if you're going to want a great marriage, copy people with great marriages, right? Ask questions. If you want a great sales business, copy somebody with a great sales business. If you're wanting whatever it is in your life, think about that. And there's a ton of information out there, a ton of mentors that you can have access to, free access, because of YouTube like this and other things that are out there, social media and such. Otherwise, just pick up the phone and call and ask. That would be another opportunity for you. All right. Okay, so it's always a journey. It's never a destination, and you may never arrive in this thinking big, right? Because as soon as you hit a milestone, you're going to most likely, up the ante. You're going to up the goal and say, wait a minute here, I just accomplished this in a short amount of time. So therefore, I'm going to try to accomplish this. And so when that happens, that never-ending piece of education and growing as a human, as a business person, there's never a destination. It's always extend that goal. Okay. The hardest thing about thinking big is having the commitment to stay with it. All right. So think about how many times you've set a goal and you haven't achieved that goal yet, but you have achieved a whole bunch of other things. It's the person that you're becoming that is capable of acquiring and achieving that goal. And it will pay dividends over and over, maybe if it's not just that achievement that you specifically wrote down, but other things are going to come your way because of it. All right. One of the things I wrote down was you've got to be patient, not impatient, because a lot of the big things in life take a lot of time. And it's a learning process in order to accomplish those big things. And this, like I said, it's a lifelong thing, right? All right, quit looking for the easy way. Now, I always want the easy way. It's not always the best way. It's not always the fastest way. That's the kicker right there. Typically, there's no easy way, right? Right now, when people are in real estate, they're struggling and they're looking for a deal. That's okay. They're looking for the easy deal. That does not mean to do things dishonest. That does not mean to cheat the process of expecting everybody to call you versus you making those outbound phone calls. So think about that piece of it. The easy way just doesn't necessarily exist. At least I have not found it personally. I've always had to grind and work and really go over and beyond what I think I'm capable of or what I think I should be doing in order to achieve the success that I want. So it's always, takes a lot longer and it's always more work than I think it was going to take originally. All right, so there are certain facts, human natural laws and assumptions that we have to understand to become a big thinker. The most important is understanding the law of reality. And that law of reality is so many things are tied into this, is what is achievable in a certain amount of time frame. If you're saying, hey, I'm going to make $1 million in this time frame, it probably should be out there at least 30, 60, 90, maybe a year, 2-year time period, maybe 3-year time period, and broken down into chunks. But if you're saying, I'm going to make $1 million within 24 hours, it's not necessarily reality, unless you have a lot of money in order to invest and to make that happen. But if you're a real estate salesperson, then it's going to take a little bit more time. But it is possible. It's entirely possible. All right, so the next one. We have to become a net person versus a gross person. The net person allows you to see clearly. All right. This in real estate, I'm gonna put the comparison there, is all the awards are top producer and multi-million-dollar producer, and I achieved $10 million worth of sales this year, and they're not talking in net numbers. How much money did you net? Okay, and even if you grossed, let's use a realistic number for most of the real estate agents out there. I'm going to say $100,000. You grossed $100,000 in sales. And in California, that's not a lot of money. In other parts of the world, it's an extraordinary amount of money. So if you grossed $100,000 worth of sales and you spent $25,000 on pay-per-click advertising and websites and farming materials and all of that, your net number is $75,000. And that is reality, right? It's not a puffed number. It's not a smoke and mirror, just like all the brokers out there want to use these multi-million-dollar badge of honor out there for people making less than six figures. And this is very, very common. And so I think that gives a disservice to our industry with all these mega awards, mega teams, and all the stuff that they're making 100 grand or less. It doesn't serve them any good at all. It's an ego-based business, and it's not a net financially rock solid based business if you're looking at net. So think about that. The next thing we wrote down is I have to become a non-ego person. When you're focused on yourself, you can't see the reality around you. So this happens all the time in the real estate business is me versus what's reality. And the me part is what do I need to change in order to get to the next level, in order to lead the people that I'm leading to the next level. And how do we create this team and team environment so everybody around me is raising up the ship, okay? All tides raise all ships. So think about that. It is a we business, not a me business, if you're going to succeed in real estate for a long period of time. And unfortunately, all the awards are for the lead agent, but that doesn't mean they actually got there. And it does not mean they're profitable. You really have to look at the net, as I said before. All right. We have to understand the fact that we are oriented with basically theories out there versus reality. Everybody's got a theory of what's going to work. And the reality is hard work and determination and making sales calls and saying the right thing at the right time. All of that is a science, and all of that is learned, and you'll have to implement some of those strategies in order to move forward. So that's pretty important on thinking big. And if, like, what do I have to learn this year to get to that next level? And as soon as I get to that level, what do I need to learn in order to get to the next one? And try to stop skipping the process. All right. We have to learn how to challenge ourselves and make ourselves uncomfortable. There's people watching this channel and you are probably very comfortable, complacent, as I said earlier. And you're going to have to figure out how to get out of that comfort zone. And that might be making phone calls. That might be going to meet people in person. That might be putting yourself out there on social media. Whatever it is that you're like, man, I really don't want to do that. That's the path to make yourself uncomfortable. Because over a certain amount of time, and I'll use this as my experience, I started doing cold plunges. I didn't want to get in the cold water. It's 50 degrees. And the first day was hard. The second day was a little bit easier. The third, a little bit easier. Fourth, by 2 weeks in, I'm just jumping in the water. And it was no problem. It wasn't even cold anymore. And so those little things to make us uncomfortable that we push through are going to make us resilient, and it'll be normal, and you'll grow from that. So think about that. All right. We should not set limits on ourselves, because when we set limits, we close down the creative process. So think about if you're like, man, I don't know how I'm going to sell 10 more houses this year, or I can't sell 10 houses this year. My grandfather, when I was a kid, would push down my pinky finger when I was a kid, because I was not allowed to use the word I can't. And that was the pain of pushing my pinky finger down, was to really get me to think that I can and get that word I can't out of my vocabulary. And so thinking big, thinking differently, thinking positive, thinking, hey, I can do anything that I put my mind to, started for me when I was younger, and it was developed over time by mentors and the people that I was seeking out to help educate me to go forward. And So here's the thing. When you're looking up, there's no limits. The sky, there's no limits. We can see infinitely. Now, if we're looking down with our head down, we're looking at the ground. We're looking 5 feet in front of us, maybe. And so think about that. There's no limits when your head's up. And so I'm going to leave you with that. Thanks for watching this channel. There's no limits when your head's up. Keep it positive, keep it moving forward, and keep thinking big.